Welcome to our first week of unpacking the power of one more. Little secret, I actually leveraged the book to get to this videos. I really didn't have time to record a second video today, but I took Ed's advice and said, what would it look like if I do one more video? So the power of one more. Ed talks about this notion of our identity. And if you listen back to some of the Leader Reads episodes or in some of our programs, this is a key piece of developing yourself and becoming the person that you want to become. He talks about a concept that our identity is shaped in our early childhood. His life experience with an alcoholic father and how that shaped who he was. And ultimately, this power of one more is built off his father being a role model, not as an alcoholic, but how he took that adversity and became sober just one more day at a time. And as you look at this part of the book, this is really important to take a look back at your life. How has it defined yourselves? It's had me reflect back on some of my childhood, and I had this notion of wanting to be perfect so that I wasn't noticed or didn't upset anyone. And that's kind of defined my identity up to this point. And so understanding how your childhood might have affected your identity is a critical thing to explore, but also knowing where you adjust your identity. Ed talks about this notion of we all have a thermostat where we set our standards. Setting your thermostat at 75, and that's where you're going to stay. When we really should be setting our standards even higher than where they are, because we're going to fall back and stay at the standard we've set for ourselves. Actually, this past weekend, was second largest Mega Millions jackpot, like $1.2 billion. And you've all heard the stories, millionaires winning the jackpot, and then only to find out a few years later, it's all gone. That's what Ed's trying to tell us. That standard they set for themselves was that they weren't millionaires. They weren't investors. They weren't someone that could hold on to this wealth. And they adjusted their thermostat back to where it was before they won that jackpot. We all do it. Being aware of it is critical to how you can set it at a higher standard to move yourself forward. It also talks about this RAS, the reticular activation system in our brain, and use a great analogy with the movie The Matrix. But we are wired to see things when we ask our brains to look for them. Whether it's you're looking for a new car and this just happened to my daughter. She wanted a blue Tacoma pickup truck. What do we start seeing everywhere around? Tacoma, Tacoma. There's the blue Tacoma. Our brains are wired to filter through an immense set of noise. When you realize that and couple that with asking better questions for your brain to start seeking the things you want, this becomes really powerful. It also will allow you to slow things down as you progress. And then one more try. Great story in here about a kid's birthday party. And all the kids are getting excited and beating the piñata. Nothing's happening. And they finally put the birthday boy blindfolded up to take one more big hit at the piñata, and candy goes everywhere. And everyone gets to experience the candy pouring from the piñata. But it wasn't just that one hit that broke the piñata. It was every hit by every other kid. And we have got to remember that it just doesn't happen overnight. You've got to do one more try and one more try. Chapter 4 talks about Ed's 5 principles of time management. and just looking at how we approach time differently. It's a great technique that Ed, he divides his day into 3 parts, 3 6-hour days, 6 a.m. to noon, noon to 6 p.m., and 6 p.m. to midnight. What does that do? That gives him 21 days when the rest of us only have 7. It's one more day and one more day. That gives him the ability to reflect, inspect, learn faster. We talked about this in our second leader read selection, the Atomic Habits by James Clear. Frequency. The more frequent you can do something, the faster you're going to assimilate it. So looking at time differently and realizing you could do things in a smaller period of time, get faster feedback, and also create that urgency. Ed gives us this analogy about runners. And I connected with this. My son is a long distance runner, and I see this time and time again. He runs the 3,200 meters. If you're not familiar with track, all the great world championships that just happened back in July, it's eight laps around the track, 400 meters each. The fastest lap is almost always the fastest lap. After they've ran 7 other laps, the 8th lap is always the fastest. Why? Because you can see the goal and you have that sense of urgency. So if you can compress time a little bit and create that sense of urgency, you can actually go faster and maybe beyond what you think your limits may be. So looking at time different as well. So we'll continue to unpack the power of one more, and next week we'll get into the power of one more emotion, one more association, one more dream, one more question, and really build on just one more.